Everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a three-game MLB slate that starts at 9:30 p.m. tonight. Very small slate, but we do have some interesting plays on this one. Pitching is really crazy, so let's go and get into it. Really, from a pitching perspective, we just have these six pitchers to choose from, and Snell's going to be the top option. He's the best overall option on the slate. He's been really solid lately with 4 wins the past 5 games, all of which over 24 fantasy points, including a game against San Francisco. He has the best K rate on the slate as well. He's definitely the best option here. Now, Castillo and Verlander both have some upside, but they do have tough matchups here. And then Webb looks like he's in a contrarian option, as he does have some potential, but he's only had 2 good games over the last 7. And Gray and Sandoval both look like they're in really rough situations. I think the Texas LA Angel game is going to be the highest scoring game on this slate. So let's go ahead and get into our catchers here. We really have 2 guys that we're looking at today, Mitch Garver being one, and he's a core play. He's been pretty solid throughout the season for the most part. He has been a little bit rough recently, but he does draw home run upside, and he's getting hits in most games. He doesn't have to score a ton of crazy points in order to pay off at this price point, but he is a good option on the slate. And then Jonah Heim for the Texas Rangers also in play, very similar to Garver and his potential today with home run upside. He's been hitting the ball decently well as well, and he doesn't need a ton of fantasy points to pay off either. And they're both, pretty cheap here. So if you want to be contrarian off of Garver, then go with Heim is just fine on this slate. Maybe in the first base, we'll look at Brandon Drury first for the Angels. Now, he has been pretty good recently with a 275 average. Keep in mind the Angels no longer have Trout or Ohtani playing, so they're going to be using mix and match guys. But these guys, he's hit the ball pretty well recently with a bunch of multi-hit games lately. I do like his upside on the slate, and he has some nice potential. He does have some low-end home run upside as well. And then Nate Lowe is also in play for Texas. Now, he's been inconsistent recently, but he does draw some good home run metrics today, so that's why he's on this. But he is high risk, high reward. Kind of a contrarian Hail Mary play for Texas, but Texas is in the best position of all the bats on the slate. Then we'll look at second base and look at Marcus Semien for Texas. He's been pretty solid recently with a couple home runs over the last few. He has some nice upside here. He's been hitting the ball fairly well throughout the season. And he has big game potential, especially in plus matchups, which this definitely is one against Sandoval, who's probably the second weakest pitcher on this slate. Then we'll look at Altuve for Houston. Now, he's in a tough matchup here, but he's definitely capable, as he's been really good with a 300 average, over a 300 average on the season so far, and he's been really solid against Seattle in his few games against them. He has some good potential today. He's got a lot of multi-hit games lately. He hasn't hit a home run in a little while, but he is capable of big games, and though he does need a home run really to pay off at this price point, but he also has stolen base potential. Brandon Drury can also play here at second base. Maybe in the third base, we'll look at Josh Jung. He definitely has a lot of potential today. He's hit the ball fairly well over his last 10 games he's played, and he draws really good fantasy point upside, especially if you can get a home run. He's a little bit pricey, but he's capable of a big game here, and he's got a nice plus matchup. Alex Bregman also in play for Houston. Now, again, Houston does look a little contrarian today, but and they are pricey. But he does have home run upside in the slate. His metrics are really good here, though he has been inconsistent recently with not really getting a ton of home runs, but I do think he's viable today. He doesn't strike out much, so he's capable of a big game in certain situations, and this is one of them. Corey Seager for shortstop is in play though he is very expensive. He's hitting the ball pretty solid with 3 home runs over the last 10 games. He's got that potential. He also has multi-hit potential, but at his price point, he does need a hit home run. But his batting average on the season has been really good, and I look for that to continue here. Manny Machado also in play. Now, he can also play third base, but he's averaging 10 fantasy points a game over the last 10, and he has a really good matchup against San Francisco, who he's dominated this season with 4 home runs in the 10 games he's played against them with over 12 fantasy points a game. He has absolutely massive upside. If he can hit a home run, that'll really pay off as well, but he's very capable, and he's a little bit underpriced here for what he's been doing lately. Jeremy Pena also in play at this position. He's not hit the ball particularly well throughout the season. He's had ups and downs a lot, but he does draw home run metrics for this game, and so he's a viable option in a contrarian play. Maybe in the outfielders, we're going to look at Juan Soto first for San Diego. Now, I do like San Diego some today. They are risky, but he's been absolutely demolishing the ball with a 459 average over the last 10 games, having a bunch of multi-hit games. He doesn't even need to hit a home run to pay off with the way he's hitting, but it definitely helps, and he is capable of that on the slate. Tatis Jr. also in play for San Diego. He has been inconsistent recently, but I do think he's a viable option on this slate. He has nice upside on this in this position. He just hasn't hit many home runs in the last 10, but he is capable of a multi-hit game, though I do feel like he needs a hit home run to pay off. Garcia for Texas is in play here. He has not been hitting the ball very well with a lot of strikeouts recently, but he has home run potential today, and he's a contrarian option off of the top two guys. Then for some value plays at this position, Robbie Grossman. He's hit the ball very well recently, and he draws really good metrics here for this game. He hadn't been starting every game, so do make sure he does start. But if he does, then he's going to be in play with some home run upside on the slate. Same goes for Kalenic for Seattle. He's been somewhat inconsistent throughout the season, but right now he's hitting the ball decently well. He does need to hit a home run, uh, likely to really feel good about him, but he is capable of that in certain situations, and I do think he has some upside today, even though he has a tough matchup against Verlander. Tavares is also in play for Texas. Texas is a very interesting stack, and with their value plays in outfield, that definitely helps you pay up for other options. And he's a pretty good hitter. Recently, he's hitting 333 over the last 10 games. Not a huge home run guy, but he is capable of stolen bases as well, which help pad his fantasy stats sometimes. But he's hitting decently well and needs just a multi-hit game to pay off here at this price. And then Joe Adele, last but not least for the Angels. He's a guy that's kind of contrarian that hasn't played very many games, but he's been starting recently, and he does draw some good metrics here, and he's nice and cheap. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.